Hello and welcome to StateScoop TV. I'm Jake Williams. I'm here with Anil Sharma. He's the Chief Network Officer for the District of Columbia. Anil, how are you doing?
Pretty good, Jake. How are you?
I'm doing well. So, Anil, tell me a little bit about where the District of Columbia is on its current cloud journey, and what do you expect your enterprise to look like over the next 12 to 18 months?
Absolutely. So one of the things that's extremely unique about Washington, D.C. is the journey, from our perspective, started almost 15 years ago. So one of the unique things about our environment, about our infrastructure, is we're today, currently, over 700 miles of cable that traverses through the entire district. We have multiple data centers in the district and outside the district. And it's an environment which is consolidated in nature. So over the last few years, actually, initially when we began almost 10 plus years ago, we consolidated all of the IT resources for majority of district agencies within our data center. So each have their own private cloud environment. So this is something that began long time ago. Now you're more looking towards the commercial crowd, and does it actually logically make business sense? So everything ties back to business requirements. But from our perspective, everything began a long time ago. We were able to achieve that because of the extensive environment that we have in place today. Now we're actually going towards the cloud. So we have Direct Connect, Express Route already established within the Equinix facility. So we have the capability of actually having those resources out of those areas. But again, everything goes back from a security perspective. Can we actually still maintain the security stack that we already have in place for district agencies without jeopardizing any of the requirements? Are they going to be in the private environment? Do they need to be in the commercial? So government cloud versus commercial cloud. So those are the areas that we're actually looking for as we speak.
That's really exciting. It's exciting to hear those decisions getting made and moving in that direction. That's really cool. So, a big part of that component is modernization, right?
Yep.
So how do you see modernization affecting the services that you can provide back to your citizens?
So again, everything goes back to what are the services that you're currently providing? What is the outcome that you're actually trying to look towards? So when you modernize any infrastructure, what is the gain that you're actually going to get out of it? So I'll give a key example. So today, one of the unique things about Washington, D.C. is we have an environment that's capable of supporting 100 gig. So at the edge to every single location, we actually have handoffs that exist anywhere from 100 to 1 gig, depending upon the requirements. So we just modernize the environment for our educational cluster, where the handoff to them for 80% of the schools is already at a gig. So when those decisions are made, everything goes back to what are the services that we're providing to them. And then even from a wired to wireless perspective, when we look at Washington, D.C. So if you look at Barcelona, it's considered to be the smartest city in the world. Today, from a wireless perspective, they have 15% coverage throughout the entire city. Washington, D.C. is already at 18% with a technology roadmap of taking us up to 25%. So we're already thinking about everything that you can benefit from a citizen perspective. So equity, equal opportunity for all. So how can we do that? So broadband is one of the key components. It's considered as a utility now. So how can we make sure that access exists all the way up to them? So we make these decisions when we modernize any of our facilities. One of the other things that we're including into the base requirements is, can you make sure that access exists even from an outdoor perspective, which will now propagate for the end users, the actual citizens that are actually even in close proximity to any of those locations.
Wow, that's really fascinating stuff, and it's been exciting, as a citizen of DC, to watch the Wi-Fi efforts take off and to really expand, and that's really exciting. How does legacy modernization affect your desire and imperative to modernize that network and to expand that network and move to the cloud, and how will it affect those things going forward?
So legacy modernization, most of our decisions are made early on. So when we look at facility, we're about to modernize the location. If it's a multi-tenant environment, what is the core hardware that supports the facility? We look at it not 5, but 10 years down the line. So today, if the key requirement for them is a gig, can I do 10 gig day one? And when I do 10 gig, do I have the capability of supporting them at 40 gig? So the investment that goes in, we have to be extremely strategic and thoughtful, because as you know, funding in any city is limited in nature. Right. So those are the decisions we're making now. So there are modernization efforts that are underway now. So we're not just looking at the requirements today, tomorrow, but what are you doing 5, 10 years down the line? So even if you look at advanced wireless, we actually applied for the power grant. So now we're trying to see how can you look at those technologies, what role they will play today in not just day-to-day lives of government, but actual citizens at large. How can you use that same technology to benefit them? And what outcomes can you get out of it?
That's outstanding. And how is modernization changing the way that your agency thinks about investments and plans for advancements in wired and wireless connectivity?
So again, goes back to the aspect of key requirements across the board, right? So when we modernize something, we look at it from the aspect of all outcomes across the board, not just for government operations, but anything that could actually create an impact to the day-to-day citizens' lives. So when you look at any technology across the board, so today, we're doing multiple pilots, like PA 2040 was one of the pilots. So at the end of the day, when we looked at endpoints, so wireless connectivity was one of the key aspects. But then now you have the connectivity that exists there. What else can you actually leverage that? How can you make sure that compute at the edge is also tested? How can you make sure that all those resources are actually available for all of those key efforts that we're actually working towards? So we keep all of those within our decision points.
That's great. And then, last point, and this is a big, broad question, but in your role as Chief Network Officer, how is emerging technology like artificial intelligence really going to impact the way that you think about modernization and the way that you think about your job?
Absolutely. So whenever you think about emerging technology, it has to be initial thought rather than a forethought, right? So right now when we look at autonomous vehicles, so we're actually trying to see, again, goes back to the infrastructure. How can your existing environment sustain all those key efforts? When you talk about vehicle-to-vehicle communication, when you talk about computer at the edge, when you talk about the aspects of all of those sensors when they're evaluating the data, when you talk about big data, do we have the capabilities today to actually ensure that when you talk about artificial intelligence, the existing environment can actually sustain that. So again, when we looked at the upgrades that we're doing today, we looked at computer at the edge, we looked at all these sensors, when we even did the pilot for PA 2040, which is initially it was focused on the aspect of ubiquitous coverage in a 3x3 block, but do you now have the capability of supporting all those additional sensors that you're talking about, which actually now takes you into the aspect of artificial intelligence when you talk about computer at the edge.
Wow, that's fascinating stuff. Anil, thanks for being with us today.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
For more about what Anil and the team at the District of Columbia are working on, check out statescoop.com. I'm Jake Williams, Statescoop's Associate Publisher and Director of Strategic Initiatives. Here with Anil Sharma, he's the Chief Network Officer for the District of Columbia. Thanks for watching.